with the leaders, European leaders, a debate, an open debate on our future. But today is a very difficult day for everyone in Europe. Hier, un criminel.
Yesterday, a criminal killed 3 European citizens and wounded 12 European citizens in the center of the city of Strasbourg. The city is the seat of the European Parliament, a city which symbolizes peace on the border between France and Germany. This was a criminal attack against peace, democracy, and our way of life. We must react by doing exactly the opposite of those who wish to harm democracy. We must press ahead. We must not change our habit. That's why last night we continued to work in the plenary. We completed our business at midnight. Today we're here to continue. The reason for that is that the strength of freedom and democracy win out against the violence of crime and terrorism. We are on the side of the victims' families. Last night, I received a message of solidarity to the European Parliament from the President of France, Mr. Macron. I received a number of phone calls from the most senior officials in the European institutions and organizations. Parliament is at the heart of democracy, as I was saying, and we defend democracy by our work. Yesterday we debated terrorism. Today we will be taking the vote on a motion for a resolution regarding the work of the Committee on Terrorism. At 12 noon, I will ask you to observe a minute's silence in solidarity with the victims. Unfortunately, some of the injured patients in hospital are still in a critical condition, which is why we are standing side by side with France, a country which has suffered a number of attacks following Paris and other cities in France. Now Strasbourg has been hit, but we wish to react as European citizens representing 500 million Europeans as we debate Europe. Of course, Europe needs to change, but we cannot destroy it. This is the only way we can show our strength in Europe will win over violence.
And you have the floor for this important debate.
President of the European Parliament, members of the European Parliament, in English.
Terms, the terrorist attack that took place yesterday here in Strasbourg. I express my deepest sympathy and condolences to the families and wish a speedy and full recovery to those who were injured. Terrorism constitutes one of the most serious threats to the peace and security of our Union. We shall not allow fear and terror to prevail. Instead, we shall remain united in enhancing our efforts to eliminate this deplorable phenomenon. Mr. President, it is a high honor for me to address the plenary session of the European Parliament in the presence of the presidents of the EU political institutions, before the European citizens, and to have the opportunity to present the thoughts, my ideas, but most of all my vision for the future of the Union. Και το πράττω, κυρίες και κύριοι.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am fully aware that I am addressing the institution which is the symbol, if you will, of the very heart of unity and democracy in Europe. The timeless principles and values that have been pervading the development of the large common European family are represented in that institution. As European Parliament, you are one of the basic pillars to safeguard the democratic functions of the European Union. And this is why your role is and will continue to remain decisive. Ladies and gentlemen, for Cyprus and its people, the accession of Cyprus to the EU in 2004 was really the capping stone of our European orientation and an identity that goes back millions of years. It was very strongly supported by the Cypriot people, not only because it is seen as a source of stability and prosperity, but also as a potential catalyst in our ongoing efforts for reunification and consolidation of security and peace in our country. I wish to stress that in 2004, Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots identified their own future with the future of Europe, with the conviction that very soon the same conditions of normality, peace and security of the member states would also prevail in our country. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, today's Europe emerged from the horror of 2 world wars as a result of collective consciousness and responsibility of courageous leaders who believed in cooperation and unity. Their aim was to, first of all, work together in the economic sphere, but also to safeguard human rights, the rule of law, prosperity, and the security and safety of citizens through economic unification and the establishment of the 4 freedoms. Now, to achieve those goals, with hard work, collective work, Europe really stands out as the most remarkable model of peace and prosperity in modern history. And this is a model that we must preserve, but also strengthen. And we are very, very concerned as we witness the latest trends and developments which are shaking this unity which has been with us for so many years. These developments and trends, such as the exit of a member state from the European Union, the closing of borders in violation of the Schengen Treaty, the re-emergence of nationalistic trends, the erosion of the Union's role through this rise of populism, and an arbitrary application of the principle of solidarity. The acute rise in the phenomenon of terrorism, as we unfortunately witnessed yesterday, unfortunately are matters we must reflect upon deeply. These are phenomena that we need to tackle collectively to protect the geographical and political and economic unity, that is to say, the European integration that we have worked so hard to achieve. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, President Juncker presented an ambitious work programme for the current Commission's term of office with a view to the next European elections which are looming. Cyprus, being a staunch advocate of a stronger, more powerful, more democratic and more united Europe, has been and continues to be committed to implementing this programme. Within that framework, the consultations underway have to do with our future, the future of Europe, and are an excellent opportunity to listen to civil society so that we are better able to assess how effective our policies are and to redefine them in order to ensure that they are better targeted to be beneficial to citizens. We need to listen to the citizens in order to understand the underlying causes of the abrasion and as expressed through the broad abstention from the European elections, and we need to try and understand the reasons behind this gap and crisis in confidence and trust. Ladies and gentlemen, the consultations for the future of Europe in all member states must be based, in my view, on the following questions. What Europe do we want, and what are the lessons we can draw from the course of Europe so far? What needs to be improved and how can it be done? How close are we to our citizens? What are the causes behind the rise in nationalist and populist movements? And how might we deal with this phenomenon? How are the increasing social and economic inequalities within Europe to be tackled? In my view, it is now urgently essential that we find clear responses to these questions within the framework of self-criticism, reflection, and that we realise where we failed and where we can do better so that people in Europe, citizens, can once again trust the Union and its institutions, so that they can feel safe again in the conviction that challenges are being met and feel the positive impact on their daily lives of the common policies of the European Union in such areas as health, the environment, working conditions. And these are areas which affect citizens' everyday life and prosperity. Mr. President, the European Union, without a doubt, is a mosaic of nations and peoples, and its beauty and value is derived from that composition and diversity, and each piece has its own worth, just as it has its own specific features. The mosaic remains, however, imperfect when just a small piece is even missing, and therefore the power and the worth lie in the composition and unity of that mosaic. And this is where we base our cooperation, on unity and solidarity. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2013, when I took over the presidency of Cyprus, I found myself facing painful dilemmas. Cyprus was facing a severe economic crisis which, on the basis of the size and the nature of its economy, affected a large majority of its citizens in a very negative way. It meant that necessary but difficult decisions had to be taken, with decisive actions and measures, and with the support of the society of Cyprus, which at the time was having to face the economic consequences comparable to those of the 1974 invasion. We undertook to implement substantial reforms which allowed our economic reconstruction sooner than even the most optimistic expectations. Now, a brief reference to the positive results achieved by the Cyprus economy in recent years justifies a series of decisions that we took as government and have achieved a number of things. I could say, for example, we exited the economic adjustment programme, and even sooner, in fact, than expected by the international community. We can also mention the continuous upgrades by rating agencies and the re-accession of Cyprus into investment markets, the re-entry into international markets. And for the fourth consecutive year, we have noted a positive growth rate of close to 4%. Unemployment is continually on the decline, and we have seen the highest annual decrease in unemployment among member states. And finally, for the fifth consecutive year, we expect to have a surplus in our budget. Ladies and gentlemen, we are focused and we are determined to maintain macroeconomic stability and continue with the measures under which a surplus and high growth rates have been achieved, and to give further impetus to the excellent prospects that have been created with regard to our major productive sectors. Now, with regard to the budget of the European Union, we are following the same strategy. The current negotiations on the new MFF, Multi-Annual Financial Framework for 2021 to 2027, has to reflect the path of growth that Europe has taken after a very difficult decade as a result of the global financial crisis. We are aiming to set an ambitious budget that will include all the costs required to deal with the modern challenges we have to face together. And these challenges cover a broad spectrum of various priority sectors, such as the switch to digital integration, promoting sustainable development, climate change, innovation, migration, the rise of extreme nationalism, asymmetric threats, and the fight against terrorism. At the same time, the new multi-annual financial framework must focus on people, on European citizens, and improving the quality of their lives. By rationalising expenditure and through proper planning, we have to ensure that the money that belongs to the European taxpayer is spent on targeted policies and in no case is wasted and squandered on inefficient programmes. The new budget, given that we will now be a Europe of 27 states, needs to be suitably adapted but also flexible, and to maintain a balance between our traditional policies and modern needs. Moreover, in that framework of a closer economic conciliation, we need to seek to complete the venture of the banking union in the light of a renewed monetary and economic union, as also the promotion of the capital markets union, which will mobilise capital for investments in member states. Mr. President, undoubtedly, the common market, which recently completed its 25th birthday, is one of the most important goals achieved by the European Union. The long-term goal of defending the common market acquis requires all necessary measures to be taken to bring it into line with the new circumstances as they have been shaped, to respond fully to the modern needs of the digital age, to the challenge of the low energy footprint of the cyclical economy or the circular economy, and above all to have a positive impact on the daily lives of its citizens. I look forward to tomorrow's debate on these issues during the work of the European Council, and from which I expect a strong commitment to a strengthened common market of the future. Ladies and gentlemen, moving from a soft power to the common defence of the Union, the fact is that very much has been achieved as a consequence of the Lisbon Treaty. Of course, there is room for further improvement, but always in a climate of consensus and respect for the particular sensitivities of each member state. I believe that a possible modification in the way decisions are taken in the sector of defence would be counterproductive to achieving the convergence that is essential. Cyprus has and continues to be a supporter of the defence and military cooperation which is continuously developing among member states. We are among the countries that from the very outset expressed their desire to be part of PESCO, the Permanent Structured Cooperation. Although we recognise PESCO as a decisive step, we have a vision which is Europe's military independence, the creation of European armour, a powerful factor, a strong factor to protect the borders of the Union. And I wish to underline that it must always work not in an offensive but in a defensive and a deterrent manner. And working towards the interests of the Union remains our vision. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to refer to a number of external factors that in fact are a threat to the cohesion of the European Union. These are factors that I believe need to be dealt with decisively in an environment of unity and solidarity. The unprecedented humanitarian crisis we've been facing in recent years really means that we need to put aside our different approaches and narrow national priorities. The southern part of Europe is facing mass flows of migrants, and the weight they have to bear is disproportionate, especially for those member states in the front line. My country being one of those, we are seeing more and more migratory pressures that we have to feel, we have to bear, and we are therefore one of those countries that has the highest number of migrants in proportion to its population. There are other reasons that accentuate and exacerbate the problem. On the one hand, the dividing line between the free areas and the occupied areas in my country, and on the other hand, the continuing refusal of Turkey not only to recognise the Republic of Cyprus, but also to implement the agreements that it's entered into with the European Union, such as the readmission agreement. It doesn't even cooperate with the Cyprus authorities because, and this is a candidate country I'm talking about, it feels that the Republic of Cyprus, which is a member state of the European Union, is actually not to be reckoned with. Now, with regard to the system, we need to revise the Common European Asylum System and the Dublin Regulation to achieve a fairer distribution of the weight of migration and refugees among member states. This is essential. Ladies and gentlemen, another challenge we have to face is that of global warming and climate change. Now, we should focus on the Paris Agreement and also take coordinated action, aiming towards a more ambitious policy in the framework of the summit taking place in Katowice in Poland. If we underestimate the visible dangers, unfortunately the consequences will be dire, not only to the ecosystem, but to the economy as well, but also on everybody's everyday life. In the context of the broader regional role we are developing and our trilateral cooperation with countries in the region, we intend to play a coordinating role at regional level to tackle the consequences and impact of climate change, and relevant synergies will be achieved with countries of the region. The Eastern Mediterranean region is among those regions where climate change phenomena and the impact on the environment of global warming have really been felt very strongly. Mr. President, now the major challenge in this long history of the European Union is, of course, the decision of the United Kingdom to withdraw. So for the first time, the 27 were called upon to manage this venture. Of course, we respect the decision of the British people, and that was our only choice. As a European Union, we negotiated in seriousness and unity in supporting Mr. Barnier's team, which prepared the raft of principles that will allow us a smooth exit of the UK from the Union. And I have to admit I am satisfied with the overall result of the negotiations. We support a broad and multi-level relationship between the UK and the EU, and we will continue to work towards that aim. The new relationship must be mutually beneficial, in full harmony with the principles of the European Union, its structure and its autonomy. With regard to the British bases in Cyprus, we are also satisfied since we achieved our initial target, and that is the unobstructed continuation of the implementation of the community acquis, so that all European citizens who reside or work in the bases, the UK bases, will continue to be able to enjoy their rights and benefits as members of the European Union. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, as Cyprus, we wish through our actions to make our contribution towards a powerful, united European Union that promotes peace, stability, security, solidarity and prosperity of the peoples that make up this unique mosaic. And in this context, by using our geographical location and our excellent relations with our neighbouring peoples, during the last years we have been working on actions and synergies in the Eastern Mediterranean area, which is an unstable area. We have set up with Greece trilateral mechanisms of cooperation with countries in the area, such as Egypt, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon and Palestine, on the basis of international law and the values and principles of mutual respect and solidarity. Following a suggestion of the government of Cyprus, our proposal was approved for the establishment of a permanent trilateral secretariat based in Cyprus, so that we can be more effective in our coordination, and also so that we can continuously follow up and evaluate the course of this cooperation. Establishing this trilateral cooperation has proven to be very, very beneficial for the European Union, particularly in the field of energy, contributing to the much desired energy security and the diversification of the sources of energy and the energy corridors of the European Union. It's important to bear in mind that the EU is clearly showing solidarity with the Republic of Cyprus in terms of its right to exercise sovereign rights to explore and exploit its natural sources in the exclusive economic zone. And we have seen that we are supported in pointing out the need to avoid any threats or actions that may destabilize and may not be compatible with international law and the community acquis. Ladies and gentlemen, in my introductory remarks, I pointed out that when Cyprus joined the EU, it identified with all the other European citizens. We were looking forward to an accession that would have a catalytic role and bestow on the citizens of Cyprus the same rights and same level of respect of fundamental freedoms as those enjoyed by the rest of the European citizens in their own countries, without any divisive lines, without intervention rights or guarantor rights by third parties, without an occupying army and without restrictions to the basic freedoms. Very often, I talk about my vision for a Cyprus which is a beacon of stability in the area of the Mediterranean, the Eastern Mediterranean. To speak realistically, we do know that the light of that beacon falls far short of its full potential as long as Cyprus remains divided. Sometimes, current challenges make us forget important historical truths, but the Cyprus question basically remains a problem of foreign invasion and occupation and violation of human rights and fundamental freedoms, because since 1974, more than a third of the population of Cyprus has been forced to be refugees in their own homeland. At a time when the Union is negotiating how it is going to tackle new tragic wars, resulting in millions of refugees, the refugees of Cyprus continue to be deprived of their basic freedoms and are not able to enjoy peacefully their own properties and to live in their own homes, as is their right. While we are discussing the future of Europe, for the citizens of Cyprus, these 4 basic freedoms, which are self-evident for the rest of Europe, are still a far-off target that has yet to be achieved. The President and members of the Committee on Petitions of the European Parliament are fully aware of the realities on the ground, and I'd like to express at this point on behalf of all Cypriots our thanks and our satisfaction with the response of that committee and the actions just taken, particularly with regard to the fenced-off city of Varosha. I cannot but agree with the conclusions of the report, especially the reference to the fact that the return of Varosha to its lawful residents would constitute the ideal confidence-building measure, a model of coexistence and cooperation between Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, an excellent forerunner, if you will, of the comprehensive solution. I may remind you that in 1984 and in 1992, the international community, via the United Nations Security Council and its resolutions 550 and 789, called for the transfer of the administration of that particular area which is lying under Turkish occupation, that it should be transferred to the responsibility of the United Nations. Unfortunately, that has not been possible because of Ankara's stance. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, Europe, which rightly takes part actively and takes initiatives to solve international problems, feels it has a moral duty to help contribute towards resolving the problem of a member state, and a problem which is in fact an open wound in its own body. Healing this wound will reinforce and strengthen the Union, not just morally, but substantially as well, because only then will Cyprus be in a position to play to its full potential its own crucial role in a very important area in terms of the interests of the European Union. I wish to reassure the members of the European Parliament that I am determined to work tirelessly to achieve a solution that will not create winners and will not leave behind losers. A solution that will fully respect the expectations and concerns of both Greek and Turkish Cypriots. That will create a functional and viable federal state on the basis of the UN Security Council resolutions, on the basis of agreements between the leaders of the two communities, a state that is fully sovereign and independent, free of dependence of any kind on third parties through interventional rights or rights of guarantee or occupation armies. A European state whose structure, institutions and functions will be fully compatible with the principles and values of the European Union. This is why we support in every way the efforts of the UN Secretary-General and his Special Envoy in the hope that the talks will recommence very soon, so that we will be able to sit around the negotiating table and work on an agreed framework and terms of reference aiming towards achieving the comprehensive solution and a reunification of the island. Ladies and gentlemen, it would be an inexcusable admission if, with this opportunity given me today, I did not express the grateful thanks of the people of Cyprus, Greek and Turkish Cypriots, towards the European Parliament for the unrelenting support in our efforts in trying to find a peaceful solution in a European state. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would like to thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to present to you my vision for the future of Europe. We in Cyprus, this is the way we see the European Union. There are many challenges, and justifiably our expectations are high. However, all the necessary ingredients and guarantees are there as long as we remain together, united in solidarity and respect for the basic values of the European Union. We continue with the initial vision of a strong and prosperous Europe, not only in order to preserve our precious mosaic, but to further enhance it. And it is for this prosperous Europe that we must join forces, putting aside different approaches and national interests that are narrow in order to be able to deal effectively with our common challenges. This is the only way that we will achieve a brighter future for Europe and its citizens. Thank you.
Stiamo per chiudere.
We're about to close the register for speakers under the Catch the Eye procedure. Anyone wishing to speak should ask now or forever hold your peace. You need to hold up the form and make sure that you're counted if you wish to be included on the list. Right, at this point I shall give the floor to Mr. Katainen, the Vice President of the Commission.
President Tajani, President Anastasiades, honourable members, our thoughts and hearts are with the victims of last night's horrible attack against humanity that we condemn with great firmness. We are grateful for the tireless work of the first responders, and we trust in the work of the law enforcement services to bring those responsible to justice. We will continue to defend our free and open societies by all means in our use. The city of Strasbourg is a symbol of European peace and democracy, values that we will always defend. The European Commission stands alongside France and French people at this very difficult moment. Honourable members, I wished we would have had a better situation to talk about the future of Europe than where we are today. Nevertheless, we cannot give up. We need to continue building better and safer Europe for our citizens. Intolerance and hate don't belong to our societies, and they don't represent our values. I want to thank Mr. President, my good friend Nicos, for being here today to debate the future of Europe. I remember when we talked about the future of EU in the Prime Minister's office in Finland many years back. We have continued this discussion during all these years, and now we are here in the European Parliament to discuss with honourable members on the challenges, opportunities and direction of the European Union. Mr. President, you and your country has always shown a great European solidarity. You have shown this time and again over the years. When it comes to migration, you have always been there and taken much more than your fair share of responsibility. The financial and economic crisis also hit Cyprus harder than the most. The effects will not go away overnight, but today I see a recovering labour market and economy, growing by over 4% in 2017 and continuing at an impressive rate this year. I see a more stable financial sector with the lower, although still too high rate of non-performing loans. I see also investment returning, thanks in part to the Juncker plan, which has helped trigger 109 million euro of additional investment. It has also supported 124 smaller companies or start-ups to grow and create jobs locally. I will visit Cyprus at the end of January to discuss further use of Juncker plan in order to help to boost growth and job creation. But if the situation has turned around, it is because of the strength and hard work of Cypriot people. I want to pay tribute to them in particular for everything they have done. I also want to pay tribute to you, Mr. President, dear Nicos, for your commitment to the programme of recovery. Tough decisions made and the commitment to making them work should never be overlooked by anyone in Europe. We know there's still a long way to go, and the Commission will assist you every step of the way, including through tailored support offered by a structural reform support service. It has already provided €520 million to support the economic integration of the island and improve links and contacts between its two communities. But it also continues to support Cyprus across the board, including meet its climate and energy targets. The point is that as we look our future, Europe will stand in solidarity with Cyprus, just as Cyprus has always stood in solidarity with Europe. And nowhere is that more important than when it comes to bring to an end the division of the island. The Commission will stand ready to assist any efforts. The Commission will always answer your call to support any negotiations or discussions held under the auspices of the United Nations that work towards a fair, comprehensive and viable settlement. This would be beneficial for Cyprus, for Europe and for the wider security and stability in the region. There would be no more important message for our common future. But we must prepare that future as of today. Later this week, European leaders, including the President, will have a real discussion on our future long-term budget. This is not about numbers or figures only. It's about our future. It is about deciding what Europe should achieve. And it is about deciding where to invest in our future, on the issues that matter the most to the people of Cyprus and the whole of Europe. This is why the Commission has put forward a fair, modern and balanced budget. A budget that is more efficient and more focused on the issues that matter the most, just as Cyprus has long been calling for. For instance, there will be an almost threefold increase in funding for migration and security to make sure that Europe can protect its citizens. This will be especially important for Cyprus as a country that has taken so much responsibility in this area. Funding for research and innovation will be increased by 50%. We have also proposed to double the means of Erasmus+, and a new Digital Europe programme worth €9 billion will support Europe's digital transformation. All of these will provide real opportunities for Cypriots and to further boost the productivity of Cypriot economy. We have also proposed an enhanced reform support programme with €22 billion earmarked for key reforms identified in the European semester. All of this will make a real difference on the ground in Cyprus and across our union. So it is crucially important that we can agree on our new budget as swiftly as possible. Mr. President, I count on your support, your counterpart support, and of course this House support in order to make all this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Katainen. Now, in name of the European People Party, Manfred Weber.
Meine Herren Präsidenten, sehr geehrter Herr Präsident.
Dear President Anastasiades, a terrible night is behind us now. I'd like to say thank you, President Tajani, to you for the